Hi, I'm Scott from Roland, and I'm really proud to be here at Craft Music showing you the Fantom. The Fantom is all about having the power and the capability of digital, but with the immediacy of analog. It's very, very visual. Everything is really at your fingertips. All of the tools here are completely immediate and inspirational. Again, it's all about the visual integration. Not only integrating with you connecting with it as an instrument, but also DAW integration. Now, everybody's approach is completely different. Everybody has a very unique way about how they're going to create music. And the Fantom is completely diverse. It really handles everything. There's many different ways that you can sequence. There's many different ways that you can go about playing sounds and layering sounds. It really has something for everybody. Anybody that touches a Fantom is really just going to be kind of addicted to its playability and all of its amazing qualities. Now, during the course of this demo, I'm going to dig pretty deep in a lot of the features of the Fantom. You're going to see the workflow is going to work for everybody. There's something here that really identifies each person's approach and their musical needs and their creativity. It's going to be fulfilled here with the Fantom. It seems that every day the bar is being raised on how people creatively make music. Well, the Fantom, this is where it really shines because there's so many different ways you can do things and it really satisfies everybody's needs. The Fantom comes in three sizes. The 88-note weighted action, this incredible RD2000 action. I love playing this. It feels so good. I could really dig in. It's also sensitive enough to play the really cool synth lines and strings and pads. Amazing action for the Fantom 8. We also have a 76-note version and a 61-note version that has brand new synth action. The best synth action I've ever played. Amazing. It's going to be great for everybody. So on that last tune, you heard a lot of piano. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the V-piano technology that is inside the Fantom. So I have this V-piano sound. Now, you know, the piano, everybody has their different idea of what the perfect piano should sound like. And with the V-piano, you have all of this technology where you can create your perfect piano. For instance, you go into the piano designer, you can adjust the lid, how much the lid is open and closed, the string resonance, damper resonance, just about every doable parameter on the piano. So you can really make this piano exactly detailed to your liking. Also, you can tune it. Every note has a particular tuning that you can have. Very, very nice. You can see the scaling, so it kind of gets a little bit more brighter. As you get up higher, it gets a little bit deeper, and the mid-range is just perfect. And every range, absolutely beautiful to play. It's so much fun to actually have an instrument with all of these features, all of these capabilities, all of these different varied sounds, and then have the best piano in the business right in the same box. That's awesome. Now, another thing that's really important, especially for the live musician, is to be able to go from one sound to the next sound without any clips or any flaws or any breaks in the sound. You just want it to be completely seamless. Now with the Fantom, there are 16 zone textures that you can have, and you can go seamless from one to the next. This is really awesome. Let me show you. So let's start with this very complex texture. You can hear all the layers and all the movement. It's really beautiful. Changing the sound. Notice how the other previous sound faded out. Really, really important, especially on these flowing, evolving sounds, to have the patch remain absolutely seamless. I just love how it just crossfades so beautiful. Back to the V piano. So nice. So as you know, a scene can have up to 16 zones. So let's narrow it down now to just one zone, and let's look at the individual sounds. So there's a couple of different ways that you can address them. So you have the category buttons over here. So if I want to look at the pianos, I just hit the piano button. Notice that the screen changes, and I kind of look at that one specific tone. I'm not dealing with a scene concept right now. I'm just looking at that one tone. And then if I just hit enter, and now it gets into that category search like what we've always done in the past. So you can choose your favorite piano. There's so many to choose from. Now you have a couple of different subcategories with each of these main categories. So I have acoustic pianos, I have pop pianos, much more bright, sort of like real classic electric grand pianos and so on. So you can see all of the different sounds that are available to you. Also, I can hit the other categories and do the same thing. So I have electric piano 1, electric piano 2. I think you get the idea. Now, of course, you can quickly go through these categories, or you can hit the pull-down menu, and then you can choose the categories from there. I tend to use this a lot. So then if I want acoustic bass, or if I want an electric bass, or synth basses. Now you go into synth basses and you got like a zillion. So very cool. So it's very easy to choose individual sounds. That is awesome. Now there may be an instance where you want to create your own tone from scratch. And usually people kind of shy away from that because it is a little bit of a process. And so they just end up using presets. But many times you want to just detail the tone in your own way. But the thing is, as I mentioned before, you have a completely visual interface here. Everything is up front. So even as deep as tone editing can be just a button push away. Okay, so let's check this out. So I have this basic piano sound. Okay, now, if I turn this knob here, I can open up the different types of waveforms, whether I'm at PCM, basic waveforms like piano, organs, basses, all those sampled things. We also have a virtual analog engine here. So we also have PCM sync, where like two different PCM waveforms have been sampled together. So they kind of have like this they start the same and they kind of go through their position and they re-trigger every time. So it has a different type of quality. Then you have super saw and noise. These are the different banks that you can choose. So let's say, okay, I'll choose this as my source, the super saw. Okay, tweak this a little bit with the filter. Remember, everything is visual, so let's kind of open that up. That's real nice. Very typical super saw. So 1 minute ago, that was a piano sound. Okay, that's really cool to be able to have that huge of a difference right away. But now let's go back and let's say we want to just tweak a little bit. And that's where it gets a little bit more detailed and a little bit more difficult in previous generations, but not with this Fantom. So we're going to keep in with the PCM wave type. And now I turn this knob, which is the oscillator type. I mean, it's the actual waveforms. So normally, now I'm going through all the pianos, and I'm going, wait a minute, I like that texture. So it has that little bit of a bite, a little bit more resonant sound, as opposed to this softer one, right? So you can get very detailed, or you can get extremely opposite in your sound design. Makes it very, very quick. It's very nice to have the sound editing right on the front panel. With this amazing diverse selection of sounds, you're going to want to organize them. So one of the things that we have here is that we have a way that you can colorize the sound, so you can keep track of which sound is doing what, maybe which sound belongs to another sound, or which sound belongs to a particular song, or you can even rate it, so you can say, oh, these are my top shelf sounds that I'm using for this song, or these are sort of the secondary sounds. You also have scene level, which is awesome, and you also can leave a memo for the sound too, so that really helps you to organize. Now remember, you have 512 scenes, and a scene is a 16-zone snapshot of everything on the front panel. So you're going to want to be able to organize these scenes very, very clearly and be able to get to them really fast. So you have 4 different banks of scenes that you can select, and then you're at a button push away. Well, obviously, as musicians, we want to be inspired. The inspirational level here is extremely high. And the next thing besides inspiration, we want to be able to get our work done smoothly. You have scenes that you can play back that are just for playback. And I have these labeled in red, where these are just playable scenes. And then I have scenes that have patterns in them. So, and I've labeled these yellow. So I know exactly, okay, this has got a pattern in it. So let's take a look at the patterns. Now, if you look at this particular instance, I have 2 zones, zones 1 and zone 2, where I'm going to play and layer and do some cool stuff on it, right? Play live. But here are my playback tracks. So for instance, just to give you an idea of how these clips work. Now this is very similar to Ableton, the sequencer. So if I trigger the clip, it's going to play, right? I have an awful lot. In this particular case, I have an awful lot of variations of this drum groove. And I could bring in the other parts at will. I can even start to tweak these if I want. And that's nice to see that visual filter though, isn't it? I love the fact that there's visual envelopes and filters. And I can add these parts in any way, in any order that I want. See, now they're this one is now a little off sync to the other ones, but it works perfectly. And you could see how everything is moving. I got this one matching 6 and 7. So I can have all this cool organic playback with the clips. And again, it's all about where I want to put it. Normally when you have to sequence, you're kind of stuck with those sounds and that organization of your playback from beginning to end, but not anymore. So let's take a look at this now. So obviously you see that I can order these clips any way I want and play them back at any way I want as well. I also have, after the fact, I can actually, if something is maybe 2 bars or 4 bars, I can change the loop length of that and turn the switch on and off. Also, these are all individually looped too, so I can determine how many times I want something to play back, or I want it to be an infinite loop or just one time. That's really awesome. Now, also, I can go into this pattern utility mode where I can quantize a particular clip. I can go to the mixer and I can mix everything in real time. That's awesome. I can rename it, I can import it and export it, so I could easily go back and forth to the Fantom or take it to my DAW, and I can see all of the files in their order in that particular row. So that's awesome. Again, workflow is super important and it's seamless. let's take this one step further and let's start to make these clips turn into songs. Okay, now as you know, there are hundreds of sounds, hundreds of possibilities, hundreds of configurations, and there's also dozens and dozens and dozens of already made sort of songs that you can tear apart and create it and make your own. It's very, very cool, very thorough. So let's just dig in a little bit deeper. So let's go into this particular song. Okay. Now, I want to make this, as you can see, I have many different variations on each of these parts, and I want to create my song. Okay, so one of the things, what if I wanted to play one of the parts, and so I can actually mute any of the parts that I want? That's awesome. And also, if I wanted to solo just one part so I can hear maybe what's going on, I can do that too. But let's go in and let's take this song and let's start to put it into the song categories like intro, verse, chorus, ending, so on and so on. Okay, so let's look. I can organize these and let's look at this is what the intro would look like, this configuration of all those clips. Okay, cool. Now let's look at what maybe the verse would look like. I think you get the idea. Now let's go into the chorus, and the cool thing is that you can grab the chorus, but you can also preview it. So you can move these around and say, oh, you know what, I like this drum pattern at the chorus or so on. Very, very nice. Again, the workflow is key. Okay, so I got that, and then the ending. Okay, now, once I have this, of course, once I get into this area, I can rename them. Anything, at any stage during the process, you can change things and make adjustments. That's really also key. Okay, so now let's take these and now let's make them into a song. Now at this stage, right now I have the intro is a 4-bar intro. If I wanted, I could change it to a 2-bar intro. I could change it to a 1-bar intro. Every time I have complete flexibility through every stage. So now let's make a song. All right, so I have a I have an intro, verse, chorus, and an ending. And so let's start to add the components of my song. So I'm going to create the intro, and I'm going to go create a couple of verses. No, I only need one verse here. Let's go to the chorus. Boom, and then let's do the ending. So that's basically our song, okay? And again, you can add, replace, you can insert. If you have a whole bunch of things, you can move things around. Very, very cool. Now let's look at the song, okay? So here's our song, and if I start to play it, goes from top, I can say, oh, you know what? We don't want to play the verse this time around, so I'm going to skip it. That's cool. Okay, now I want to loop. Turn the loop switch on. In real time as it's going, now I'm looping the chorus. Maybe for a solo or whatever. You just want to extend it. Turn the loop switch off. Now it goes to the end of the song. So you really have complete control all the way. This is great. This is really, really awesome to be able to have. As I mentioned earlier with the scene concept, a scene is a snapshot of everything that's on the front panel. Up to 16 zones, everything has effects, samples, patterns, everything is all at a button push away. But let's go a little bit, let's kind of retract a little bit and dig into how you can manipulate the scene in real time. So in this particular scene, I have 4 zones, and I have these evolving pads. Of course, I can mix them. Right now, I'm just listening to one now. Actually, on this one is very cool because listen to how it evolves. It kind of has this fluttering, and that's the step LFO. We're going to get into that in a second. So now I can easily kind of mix how I want this zone to sound, and I can do all this in real time. It's so nice to have this flexibility. Okay, so let's dig into this step LFO concept that I was talking about. Okay, so let's go to, right now, these are the on-off switches for the zones. When they're red, that means that it's manipulating internal sounds. If I hold the shift button and hit it and it turns green, that means that it's going to control external devices or like DAW controls, like for instance, like in main stage or things like that, okay? But anyway, let's go back to this step LFO. So right now, I have all the volumes down on the 3 other zones except for zone 2. And let's go into tone edit and let's look at this step LFO. There we go. Okay? So as I was going through those different screens, you can see that every tone has a lot of complexity, a lot of flexibility, so you can do some really amazing editing. But if you look at this step LFO, you can see there's different elements that I can apply a curve to, get the depth nice and high, and I have all these different curves. That's so cool. Now, it's also very similar to the software instruments like Massive, where you have so many different LFO types. And it's nice to be able to have control here. And then, of course, when you go into the filter, when you start, it's nice to see all of the elements of the filter, too. Again, it's all about being visual here. If I bring up the resonance, that's where you really start to hear all the movement with the step LFO. Start to bring in the other sounds, and you just are really having so much fun and just being inspired to make great music. With the Fantom, we have a newly engineered sound engine. And with this sound engine, we have extended our capabilities in things like filtering, envelopes, basically all aspects of sound design. So let's go into the filter and take a look. All right, so we have our Jupiter filter, -12, -18, and -24 dB slopes. We have some other vintage iconic filters. Also some peak filters and all the low-pass filters too. So to hear the filter, let's go into one of the arpeggiated patterns. So I got this going. And let's play around with the filter. Again, it's nice to be able to see everything. Everything behaves so nicely. Listen to how that peak filter tweaks the resonance there. In addition to the newly modeled filters, we also have an analog filter. So I'm going to get this analog filter moving, and let's take a look at it. So I can increase the level. I could go in, there's an overdrive. I could kind of boost that just a little bit. We could go in and start to listen. Nice. Really, really cool. Okay. Now I can also go in and use the digital filters as well. So I can really get it pumping. Also go in and play around with the effects, which is nice. So I have multi-effects. I have a modulation delay on it now. Let's go through one of the other 90 effects. Put a phaser on it. Nice. Get a little EQ it a little bit. So it's really nice to have both of those filters. Another feature of flexibility is we have this morphing concept. Now we've brought out this sort of XY morphing concept in the Integra 7 quite a few years ago, but this one acts a little bit differently. I have 4 different zones that you can put your own sounds in here, and then you can move over those zones, and it's going to morph and crossfade between these 4 sounds. So for instance, if I have this tone, right now I'm hearing mainly zone 1. So this is really, really cool. Now there's also an auto movement here as well. So that makes it really nice. Again, just another level of flexibility, another level of sound design, another level of creativity. Now, as I mentioned before, that everything on here is visual. The filters are visual, the envelopes are visual. So let's take a look at the envelopes. So I have this really cool, very useful, good sounding synth brass type pad, and let's take a look at this now. So I'm gonna open up. Let's play around with the pitch envelope here. Put a little depth, just enough. So I got that little scoop that I like. Okay, nice. Now let's get a little. Let's have a little filter, kind of slow down the attack. Nice. So you see, it's very visual. It's actually great to learn. for not only for pros, but it's great for beginners, so they can actually see what the sound is doing instead of just turning knobs and going, oh yeah, memorizing stuff. So now you can see it, learn from it. Filter's cutting off a little bit. Nice. So right away, I got that little scoop with the pitch. I got the filter and the amplifier kind of decaying nicely, and the attack is nice as well. So again, everything is visual. It's very easy to understand, and it's quick. Okay, let's talk about sequencing. Now, as I mentioned before, that there are so many different ways that people create music. And some people say, oh, I like to do things in step time. I like to do things in real time where I'm playing. I really like the way that Roland has always had that TR recording. Well, the great thing is, the Fantom, you can do all of these. So let's go into it right now. So I'm going to go into TR recording mode. Okay? Now, right now, I'm just going to do a one-bar pattern, okay? So you can see that these are the events. I hit a note that I want to record, and I just put it on the grid. Wow, I'm 40% done with my song. It's pretty cool. See how that's working? I hit the note and then I place it on the grid. Very, very useful and quick. Hit the hi-hat, put in the hi-hats. Nice. So I like it. Not trying to create a Grammy, but I like it. Now, if you go in and you look at, in the sequence mode, you just created your first pattern, your first clip. That's nice. So every time I push record, I'll start to create a new clip. So let's do that real fast. So do another kick pattern. That's good. Hi-hats. Just kind of throw them in there right now. Got my snare. Let's do that. So you see, I'm kind of experimenting and trying new things, making it really easy. Now, so if I go in and let's look at the patterns again, and now there's my one I just created, and there's the one I created before. Okay? So that's one way. So now let's go in and let's create another pattern using another input method. Okay, so let's go to, let's record. Now I also have step time, so I'm going to hit step time. Oh, by the way, when you're recording the TR style, you can actually change the rate, the grid. So if I wanted to do triplets, before, like go mix it up with triplets and eighth notes, I can do that all in real time too. So that's also very, very great. Okay, so getting back to step time. So now I can set the type of the length of the note here. So I'm going to play with 16th notes for a minute. Whatever I play, I don't have to be in time. I'm just kind of playing it. And let's say if I wanted to have the last couple, maybe 30-second notes. Okay, now it's going to go fast at the very end. So if I'm playing it, so it has that really quick little sputter. Okay, now let's say I wanted to filter that second part. Pretty cool, I like it. Let me hear what it sounds like with the other pattern. I kind of like the first one better. Okay, now, so we got these two patterns. Now let's go to the other way that you can input stuff, and let's go into record. Okay, now I have sort of this kind of spacey pad sound. Now I can set this so it's going to be wait for notes, so it's waiting for me to play. I don't even have to listen to the count in. I can have a 2-measure count in and 1-measure count in. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to have it wait for notes. So as soon as I play, it's going to go. Now I also have input quantize. So if I make some rhythmic mistakes, it's going to fix it before I even hear it come back. That's cool too, I guess. Okay, so now it's ready for me to start. Now I'm ready, it's going. Nice. You can go in and mix it. So you see here, if I select the part, I can go to adjust chorus level or panning and reverb. Panning and level or chorus and reverb. So I want to change the panning of this track. Maybe the level's too much. Go here. I think you get the idea. Very flexible, extremely diverse, something for everybody. Another nice feature is that you have rhythm patterns. There are 59 preset patterns and there are 20 user patterns. Now each of these patterns, they have different sections. So you have an intro, you have a couple of verses, a couple of fills, and an ending. So you get the idea. Now the patterns, there's many different types of styles. You have, rock styles, you have hard rock, heavy metal, pop, ballad, blues, R&B, techno house, you name it, those patterns are in there. Plus you have all of the kits, all of the different kits, from electronic drum kits to acoustic drum kits, you have percussion kits. So it's incredibly varied. So you have a lot of fun with that. So let's dig into sampling. Press sampling mode. Now I'm going to actually sample one of the rhythm patterns. So I'm just going to set this to auto trigger. I have the auto trigger level, so if I want something really quiet, I'll have to boost that up, but this particular thing it's pretty loud. So I'm just going to crank it. Let it go through a bar, and then it automatically comes up to the sample edit page. So I have the beginning, the start point, and the end point. So I can easily get real close. I can zoom it vertically and horizontally, and then get my point exactly where I want it. I can preview it. So it looks like our loop point is pretty good. So now let's go into some quick editing, and let's just loop that. And then automatically, there it is. Loops pretty good. So obviously you can sample all of the rhythm kits. You can sample anything you play from the keyboard. You can sample any vocals or guitars by going into the input. You have the attenuation there. You can use all the effects. So the sampling capability is pretty awesome. Now you can also go into the sample utility. You can rename the sample easily. You can delete it. You can also do some truncating. You can import and export samples, from your DAW, from inside the Fantom, so you have complete flexibility on how you want to maneuver your samples. So everybody is pretty much familiar with what these 16 pads generally can do. However, I really think that we don't get far enough into it, and you can really use these pads as a helper in your workflow, not only internally, but also in your DAW workflow. So let's dig a little bit deeper. So if we go into the pad mode and we select the first one, we got sample pads, and that's basically what we just did. I have the drum that we just sampled. You also have 4 different pad banks that you can have other samples in it, so it plays back samples. That's pad mode number 1. Number 2 is where it's going to play particular MIDI notes. So in this particular case, it's a kit. It's a drum kit. So you can play it like a drum kit, or you can have other sounds there if you want, like, a big instrument hit there, or a chord or something. It's really nice to have these different MIDI triggers there in addition to samples. Now also, let's say that you want to edit sounds. And this gets a little bit difficult. It's a little bit more complex than your normal face value process. But when you use the pad mode, it makes it incredibly quick. So let's go into the tone edit. And if you see here, the tone consists of four partials, okay? And normally, when you're creating a tone, you want to turn tones on and off all of the time, okay? So this makes turning the tones off or turning the partials off. Now it's really important, because if you're tweaking a partial, if you don't have the other partial turned off, you're going to tweak all of them that are on. So it really makes it very fast to be able to use the pad mode to tweak your tones. That's awesome. DAW integration, we're going to talk about that more extensively in a minute. Go to zone mode. Now remember, I was talking about that there are 16 zones here. And now I can actually mute any of zones that I want. And that's very cool, because if you have extensive layering and you want to just take one thing out, it might be a little bit easier to memorize where those zones are on the pads than it is to go here or to go to the second level on the zone palette over here. So it's really nice to have that over here on the pads. Now, you also can solo any particular zone, pretty obvious. Now, this is what I really, really like, is the keyboard switching. Now, what this allows you to do is this allows you to program what you want to be played here, any combination of the 16 zones. So for instance, if I hit number 1, I have that as just a piano. Pretty simple. Change my program here. Goes to an electric piano. Number 3 is the electric piano and a couple of other things. You see how that works? So all of a sudden, the live musician really has a grip on a lot of different kind of like sound textures and quick program changes very, very quickly. So you don't have to mess around with that. Okay, very awesome. And the last one is rhythm patterns. Now, as you saw here in this mode where you have these different playback, sections of a groove or of a song, you have that also here from the pads. So I can control all this stuff from the pads right away. Now you notice that they don't go through the entire cycle. That's cool to have from the pads. So I can go immediately. Now that's going to be, of course, really important when you're playing live. So every song has a different section or amount of bars and so on and so on. So you're going to want that control. That's where you want to control and trigger these rhythm patterns. Very awesome. So let's take a look at the back panel. You have your headphone out, you have the main outs, XLR and 1/4 inch, you have 2 sets of sub outs so you can route maybe a click to the drummer if you're playing live and you want to sync up to your patterns here or with your DAW, or you just want to route something out these other stereo outs. You have that. You also have the analog filter out, so you can bypass all the digital circuitry here and go straight out the analog out. You also have 2 sets of CV and gate that are assignable. Very, very cool for all your modular guys. You also have the USB memory, so you can make your backup there. You also can have the USB connection to your computer. And you have 3 external device host inputs, so you can actually power up, say, a boutique or another alternative controller, whatever you want. You have 3 of those in the back. That is awesome. So on the input side, we have 2 combo jacks, XLR and 1/4 inch. They're going to support line and mic level, and we also provide Fantom power. The Fantom supports 4-foot controllers, also MIDI in, 2 outs, and a through.